arrived in New York, but I want to talk a little bit about getting to New York, the arrival process. I flew into Newark. There are 3 airports you're really going to fly into if you're arriving in Manhattan. Newark is an option, JFK is an option, and LaGuardia is an option. I have flown into all 3 and never had any major challenges. Now, with flying into Newark, I do recommend taking a rideshare into actual Manhattan or wherever you're staying. It's an exciting way to start your trip. As for where we are staying right in Times Square. We are about a block away from like Times Square that you think of when you think like Times Square. I'll show you the view. I am at the Hilton Times Square. This hotel was around $225 per night, and I ended up upgrading when I got here so that we could have this like panoramic city view, which is really amazing. And I've never had a view like this when I've stayed in New York. I've always been kind of tucked between 2 buildings, so this is pretty cool for me. We're directly above the Madame Tussauds, which is why you can see that giant hand, because there's a wax museum truly and literally under our room. It's just very fun to explore. There's so much to see and do. The food is amazing. I've got my favorite things that I always come back to, which is a lot of what we're going to look at today. And of course, I love seeing Broadway shows, which you can only do here. The tours are amazing, but there's something special about seeing a Broadway show on Broadway. But the experience I want to show you today is what it's like to actually experience New York from that tourist perspective, because that might be what you have. And you know what? If you're a New York pro, you can come and judge me in the comments, and I will take it like a champ. But that said, the Times Square area is my favorite place to stay because it's very central. It's Times Square, obviously, so it's very easy to access the rest of Manhattan and Brooklyn from the subway. We're not really taking too much travel time between our spots because we are located so centrally. But that's enough yapping from me. We've got New York City to see, baby. I have a muffin that I haven't started eating. It's gonna be great, so let's do it. Okay, we've set off and we've already passed a wax sculpture of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. That was hyper-realistic and you can just take a picture with on the street. Typically, shopping and food right in central Times Square are a little on the pricier side. In general, New York is gonna be just a bit pricier when you're actually like eating around and things like that. It is a big city. It's kind of like Orlando, honestly. Orlando is similarly more pricey. I do think New York prices, especially around Times Square, are comparable to Disney prices. We're gonna do a lot of walking today. Comfy shoes are a must. Gonna take the subway when we can and do a lot of walking otherwise. I will share my step count at the end of the day so you can get a comparison to like a heavy Disney day of the amount of walking you do. So we're gonna be pretty much going to like 3 different neighborhoods which are not that close together. Navigating the subway can be a bit scary at first, but when you use Google Maps, it will actually tell you exactly what train and what signs to look for when you're in the subway stations. So we're headed up to Central Park first, and that means we need to head uptown towards the Bronx. Google Maps will tell you exactly which train to take. We're coming down here, we're gonna hop on our train, and we're gonna head that way. You need to keep track of the train stops. Google Maps will tell you like 9 stops. Google Maps is my favorite navigation app to use in New York. The subway platforms do have like expected wait time for the trains. You can see when they're coming, but I do recommend using Google Maps. It makes it really easy to navigate the subway. It can take a little getting used to. One big tip I will share to help you from not getting on the wrong train is to triple, double, quadruple check what route you are on, what Google Maps says where the final destination of that train is, and if these signs on the train say the same thing. And know that if you're going north, you need to be on an uptown Bronx-bound train. And if you're going south, you need to be on a downtown Queens-bound train. There are exceptions to that, especially if you're going over into Brooklyn, but that should help with the core of Manhattan more or less. And if you get on the wrong subway train, you'll probably find out when the station that's coming up next is not the station you expected. It's fine, hop off, redo your directions, and then figure out where you're headed. The subway is not super expensive. You can pay your fare using Metro cards, which you pay at the station. There are little Metro card booths which you can load up and just use your Metro card. However, in recent years, they've added tap to pay to the actual subway, so you can literally tap at the subway terminals with your phone, your smartwatch, your card, and just go into the subway that way. So that makes it a whole lot easier. But on my early trips to New York, the Metro card was one of my favorite little souvenirs. So you might want a Metro card just for fun. About a 30-minute walk where we're headed, which is not that long when you think about like, oh, getting around New York on foot, that's like pretty short. But just keep in mind, you will be doing a lot of walking. Those comfortable shoes are so important. But I do recommend doing a lot of walking. Don't feel like, oh, There's not a good subway stop. I don't know. We better Uber, because if you can stomach a longer walk, then you might stumble across some of your favorite things around New York. So I do recommend walking around when you can. There's a lot of variety in New York. You walk out of a subway station and you're like, where am I? And that's part of the fun. Now, folks who haven't traveled to New York, typically one of the biggest things that you hear is wondering about safety and pickpocketing and things like that. Now, New York City is obviously one of the largest cities in the world. You do see things like pickpocketing and scams and things happening like that. So you do want to travel smart. Basically just be aware of your surroundings, keep an eye on your stuff. One of my tricks, I carry literally the same bag I carry in Disney World. I just removed the little pulls off the zipper so it's harder to open quickly. Just a little thing. I have never had any issues in New York City, but you do want to be aware of your surroundings, and especially late at night, and especially around Times Square is when you'll start to see some, you know, more expensive tourist traps, things that might be scams, and that's where you want to be most on your guard for things like pickpocketing, is in those heavy tourist areas. But yeah, I've been pickpocketed in Disney Springs and never in New York, so you can use that information as you will. All right, just ahead, we have Central Park. Now, part of the reason our walk is so long is because a lot of our walk is through Central Park. It is autumn, the leaves have changed on the trees, and Central Park is a pretty magical place to be. I highly recommend swinging by Central Park just to walk through, whether you actually go to some of the iconic locations that you can see in different movies, or if you're just strolling through Central Park on some of the main thoroughfares. I got a caricature done in Central Park on my second trip to New York. It's one of my favorite things that I've done in New York. It was so cool. Obviously it was pricey, but it was pretty darn cool to have a street artist do a caricature. Central Park's pretty easy to spot though, because all of a sudden you'll just see a huge line of trees in the middle of the concrete jungle. This is actually my first time in New York in the autumn. I've done a couple winter New York trips and a couple summer New York trips. This is the first time I've ever been to Central Park with the leaves changed. And it is so beautiful, especially considering I live in Orlando where the leaves just don't change. And it's still probably 80, 90 degrees there today. It's actually, speaking of which, let's talk weather in New York. New York obviously is going to be a colder part of the country, but it might not be as cold as you're expecting. Summers can get very, very hot in New York, and a lot of places won't necessarily have air conditioning. So that's something to dress for, something to prep for. It doesn't get quite as hot as somewhere like Orlando, but we are coastal, so it does get humid. Summers in New York can be very, very warm, even though it's a lot more northern. Winters in New York can be cold. Do expect freezing temperatures. You can expect snow. So dress for it. However, I do encourage winter trips to New York. Outside of the Christmas season, it's typically a little bit slower to visit New York in the winter. And if you can stomach the cold weather, it's very beautiful, very serene. I like cold weather, so that's one of my favorite times to go. And of course, if you want to go during the Christmas season, New York is apparently very magical at Christmas with tons of Christmas decorations. I have never done New York at Christmas time. It is bucket list for me to do that. Right now, it is 63 degrees. I'm basically just wearing a long sleeve shirt and long pants, and I'm perfectly comfortable. It does get a little chillier at night, down into the 40s around this time of year, but as long as you have like a good coat, you'll be covered. What you might not know is that Central Park is huge. I'm sure you know that it's big, but it is very, very large. It's actually 843 acres. There are some countries that are smaller than Central Park. Monaco is actually smaller than Central Park. It spans a massive section of the island of Manhattan, and that's why our walk is so long, is because we're spending so much time walking through Central Park. There are beautiful waterways. You can rent rowboats. That's another bucket list item for me, something I've never done. The weather out right now is so pretty to row on the leaves like this. It's just absolutely gorgeous in Central Park today. A couple other fun facts about Central Park. It might look like it is all natural space, but in fact all of Central Park was human made and designed. So they just fully blasted out this entire section of Manhattan Island, and then all these hills, rolling areas, meandering pathways, trees, everything was artificially put here to create this space. It was designed based on popular urban parks in London and Paris, Very cool, very historic place. Tons of movies filmed here. My personal favorite Central Park scenes are in Home Alone 2 and Enchanted. Now we are actually coming up on the Central Park Turtle Pond, which is just a little scenic spot. We're gonna see if we can see some turtles. I actually think I can already see some turtles. But there are lots of like scenic locations, little tourist locations, movie filming locations all around Central Park. You can look up guides. You don't need to like, some people will try to sell you guides at the entrance of the park. You don't necessarily need those. You can just look up guides and look around. Or you can just do what I've always done and just walk and try to stumble upon some of the magic of Central Park. I see a lot of ducks, which kind of like Disney World, but I also see an awful lot of turtles. Wait, now that I'm trying to show you turtles, I don't see any. Now we are actually walking up to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. This is one of my personal New York must-dos. I never did the Met until my last trip, and it was hands down one of the best museums I've ever been to. If you like art and also history, the Met is a must-do, and I would budget at least half a day for it. I think I budgeted half a day for it, and I wished I had a whole day. It is really, really a wonderful museum. They have a whole collection of like armor and weaponry from around the world throughout history. It is so neat. Because we were doing a lot today, are just kind of in the area of the Met instead to take a look at some of the beautiful architecture around, like Greenback Arch here, or some of the historical objects around, like this historic Egyptian obelisk, which is stationed behind the Met, and you can literally just walk up to see within Central Park, because this is the Met right here. It is literally on Central Park. If you like dogs, you gotta go to Central Park. All the dogs are here. You can look at so many dogs. I've seen some really cute dogs. I've seen dogs that are so cute, they look like they walked out of the screen when I was watching Lady and the Tramp. And they're in Central Park right now. So you gotta look at the dogs in Central Park. Central Park also actually has a free audio guide that you can literally just scan on any of these green signs and listen to the audio guide while walking around. So again, Central Park, gotta do it every time. Free, a lot of walking, but absolutely beautiful, historic, it rocks, also dogs. The Met is not the only museum in the Central Park area. There's also the American Museum of Natural History. Very famous museum. Not my favorite, weirdly. I didn't love the layout of this museum, but it had very cool stuff inside. It's obviously more natural history, so sort of history of the planet. And if you are interested in more of the like New York sort of classic attractions, you might want to look into getting the City Pass. Now, if you're not already interested in these attractions, I don't recommend getting the City Pass because some of the stuff, in my opinion, is not stuff that is technically a must-do in New York, but the New York City Pass has a couple of varieties. It does offer attractions like the Empire State Building Observatory, the American Museum of Natural History, the Top of the Rock Observation Deck, ferry access to the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island, the 9/11 Memorial, and more, like the Guggenheim. I've actually done the City Pass. It was super fun, but it was a lot of like touristy areas all at once in one trip. But if you're only going to New York once, you want to see a lot of those touristy areas, then definitely worth doing. You can save like up to 49% on some of these attractions, and it makes it a whole lot easier to not overspend doing a lot of these attractions. My favorite City Pass attraction was actually going out to Ellis Island and the Statue of Liberty, because seeing the Statue of Liberty up close was really, really cool. My least favorite are the observation decks from the top of the Empire State Building and Top of the Rock, because though the view of the city is very nice, it's a lot of money to kind of take an elevator and some stairs and then look out from a really high building, which has never been my thing. But if you like a good view, you may want to consider. I mean, look at the inlays and carving on this building here. It's just so much fun to walk around and look at the houses in this area. These are very expensive neighborhoods. There are also very expensive hotels through here. Central Park is kind of where you'll find a lot of the like very expensive lodging around New York, the Upper East and West Side. But beautiful, beautiful to walk around. We are now almost to our lunch spot. This is a restaurant that I came to the very first time I went to New York, and that I have gone to every single time I've been to New York since then. I love this spot. It's called Alice's Teacup. It is a whimsical Alice in Wonderland themed tea shop, and they do kind of like a high tea lunch that obviously is a little more pricey than your average lunch, but it's so delicious. It's a wonderful experience. The scones are amazing. The tea is amazing. And it's just a must-do for me when I'm in New York. I do highly recommend it. But this is the first we're going to talk about New York food. New York City is an awesome city if you like to eat, which if you're watching this channel, you probably are a little interested in food and snacks. New York City has a lot of amazing stuff. Of course, you've got your classic things, your must-gets in New York. You got your bagels, your New York City pizza, which is definitely on the docket for us today, and your Chinese takeout. All things that you gotta try in New York because it's better here than anywhere else. But New York, because of its size, also has incredible award-winning restaurants pretty much everywhere in the city of all different price ranges. So do your research, and I would highly recommend finding at least one or two sit-down meals that you definitely want to try out. Alice's Teacup is one that's always a big one for me, and I do recommend it. It has 2 locations on either side of Central Park, Alice's Teacup and Alice's Teacup 2, and they actually have a to-go window in Brooklyn as well. But you can see it's tucked right there. Well, Alice's Teacup, just tucked right a block away from Central Park. I love doing the high tea here, but they also have just really great sandwiches, which is what I'm doing today because I'm not super hungry. But all the teacups are like mismatched, and it's so whimsical and fun here. And I got unbirthday tea. I got a whole pot of it to myself. I wish there were more opportunities for me to get an entire pot of tea to myself at a restaurant, but there's not. So I got the unbirthday tea, which is obviously themed after the Mad Hatter, with tropical flavors. Got some scones, mixed berry and ham and cheese. And then this is my real winner here. This is the lapsang chicken sandwich. And it has goat cheese and apple. It's just a delicious tea sandwich. It's really great on the high tea as well. All right, lunch done. I really enjoyed that. I had the lapsang chicken sandwich. So good, so thinly sliced, and tons of savory flavors while having the acidity and sweetness from the apple and the creaminess of the goat cheese. And then the birthday tea was very good, where it had like a tropical touch to it, which was awesome. Now, headed back to the subway because we're headed, that's kind of our Central Park area done. We are now headed down to the Flatiron District, one, because I love looking at the Flatiron building, it's a very unique building, and 2, because that is where the New York Harry Potter store is. And if you stick around here at AllEars, you know that we do a lot of Wizarding World of Harry Potter stuff over at Universal. So we're gonna swing by the Harry Potter store because it's a pretty cool attraction. All right, now on our way down to the Flatiron District, we did make a stop at Times Square because we're doing something that I think is a really helpful New York tip today for seeing a show tonight. But basically, when you go to New York, you absolutely have to see a show. Whether it's a Broadway show or an off-Broadway show, that is hands down the must-do that I do every single time. Sometimes I do it multiple times per trip. Shows are all located around Times Square. They're located on Broadway or off-Broadway, which is around Times Square. And if you have a show that you really want to see that your heart is set on, I do recommend buying tickets in advance, especially if it is a more popular show or a show that won Best Musical at the Tonys or a lot of awards at the Tonys, anything like that. I definitely recommend buying tickets to those in advance. However, if it is a show that has been running for a longer time, or it's a little less popular, or you're here during an off season, or you don't really care what you see, you just want to see something, then you should do what I am doing right now, and you should go to the tickets booth in Times Square. This, of course, is what people think of when they think of New York. It's all here. Huge billboards and everything, very bright and overwhelming. Daytime, nighttime, it doesn't matter. It's always very busy. You can tell it's a pretty slow time in New York because there's a lot of walking space through here, which there isn't during heavier times. As we get a little closer to Thanksgiving, which is next week, I think that this area will be just slammed. You gotta visit Times Square, you gotta walk through it. And there's lots of cool stores, including the Disney store, which is right there. Can't escape it. You got Chip and Dale. I've seen those guys. I know those guys. We're friends. If you've seen stuff in Times Square, you've probably seen the iconic red stairs, especially if you've watched season 4 of Glee, I think. But those red stairs are actually the backside of the Tickets booth. Now, Tickets is a service that comes from the Theater Development Fund that actually offers discounted Broadway tickets and show tickets. There are typically long lines. As you can see, there's a bit of a long line for the Tickets booth right now. But this is how I've seen a lot of shows for cheap. I got Center Orchestra 4-row back tickets to Moulin Rouge last year for $100, which those are usually, I think, above $200 for seats that good. I do recommend getting the app if you want to use the Tickets booth. It's the same name, same logo that you can see up there, because you can check what they're going to have available before you walk all the way over here to see what they have available, and wait in line just to find out that they don't have something. But you can see it's a Monday, so there aren't as many shows available. Typically, pretty much every show except for the very most popular shows will be available. You can see they have discounted 50% off, 40% off, 30% off tickets to tons of Broadway and off-Broadway shows. And if you're willing to be a little flexible or chance a little bit, the Tickets booth can get you a major deal on seeing some of these shows for cheap. All right, of course we're gonna step in the Disney store, see if they have different merchandise from what we have in Disney World. Probably not, but maybe they have something fun. Oh, it's like we're home. They do have New York City specific Disney merch. Fun. Okay, very cute. I really like this. That's so cute. And I like Statue of Liberty Mini. Very fun. I also have the new Lululemon collection. But wow, they have a New York Disney Loungefly. That's really wild. Very cute. Rapunzel's floating lanterns on the escalator. I do love going to a big city Disney store because they're always so wild. It's only 2 floors, I think, which is actually kind of surprising. But it is still very big. They've got a lot of space in here. And a castle as well. Tickets snagged for a show tonight. We're seeing an off-Broadway show called Drunk Shakespeare, which is kind of like Drunk History, but with Shakespeare. Pretty jazzed about it. Tickets were very cheap. They were $37 compared to, seeing a show is typically $70 to $100. So now we're going to continue our trek down to the Flatiron District and the Harry Potter store, and then we'll take some rest at the hotel before showtime. All right, made it down to the Flatiron District. This is definitely an area I recommend visiting. It's a very beautiful area, and it has the iconic Flatiron Building. Now, it is under construction right now. You can see it's covered in scaffolding. But obviously, this is a classic New York site. It's like a 5-minute subway ride from Times Square to get down here. Look at the Flatiron Building. There's actually a lot of wonderful outdoor seating all through here. And of course, just like everywhere, tons of little shops. Big old Lego store, Yeti store. That's wild. Okay, so for reference, this is the corner of the Flatiron Building. Here's the Harry Potter store in New York. This is a very unique store. They do have treats and eats. They have tons of exclusive Harry Potter merchandise and some interactive experiences as well. So it's definitely a must stop for Harry Potter fans. And it's pretty different from what you see at the Universal Park. So a fun new experience. All right, so of course you can buy all of the character replica wands. It is very empty in here, by the way. And then that's pretty darn cool. They basically got Dumbledore's staircase, Hogwarts Express Christmas trains. And then if you want to see a little bit more about some of the characters, you can.
Okay, who's Team Voldemort? Who's Team Harry?
I think I've got to be Team Voldemort because I am him.
First question. Are you a Slytherin?
I am.
Okay, here we go then.
It's edging a little Harry, I think.
I think it was Harry that time.
Fair enough.
Good job.
There are even some exclusive ones, limited editions, some that you can only get here, like that are very neat designs. Locket of Slytherin wand here. I'm sorry, this is so cool. This Hagrid's motorbike collection is awesome. And yes, you can get a lot of the treats you'll recognize from the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, like fudge flies, chocolate frogs, sugar quills, peppermint toads. You can get a lot of this stuff in Universal. And they also have butterbeer to go. For real, yes, in little 4-packs, which is incredible. And this amazing loungefly. And a butterbeer apron. Oh, I like the butterbeer apron. I really like the butterbeer apron. Dark arts section, which is neat. Things that must be named, aka personalization section. Prop replicas section, jewelry section. One of my favorite parts of this store is the Mina Lima section. Mina Lima did the illustrated Harry Potter books. And when you come in here, you can, and a lot of the art for the films, you can come in here and see some recreations of film things, plus a ton of different like stationery and books and things like that, plus tons of art. So this is one of my favorite sections of the store. You've got the fireplace all clogged up with Harry's letters. Real Nimbus 2001 from the films. Very cool. And just next to that is the Brim experience. This is an upcharge experience you can do here, of course, because I guess it's an upcharge. It's a charge experience. But you can get a little movie made of you flying on your very own broom. So that's very cool. Could be a super fun souvenir. And of course, there's a book section where you can grab every Harry Potter book you can think of. All back here. They do have a butterbeer bar in here. Tastes like butterbeer. Honestly, it tastes a little bit different than ours. It's a little less carbonated with a little more foam. But the flavors are still the same. And it comes in this really cute cup, which I am going to keep. All right, we've got one more stop before it's showtime tonight, and we are headed to Grand Central Station, which is a subway station and a train station, and it is a very, very beautiful, very huge station, very historic. So we're going to stop by there as our last sightseeing before we see a show tonight. Concourse, there's an entire food area too, which was really awesome. And there's even some areas, like right here, this little part of the passageway where you can do the thing where you stand at two corners and whisper to each other and can hear. But there's fancy restaurants in Grand Central. It's just a very exciting area. At least if you hear your train is passing through it and you have some time to kill, get off the train and walk around a bit. All right, it was an 8-minute ride back to the hotel, or a 16-minute walk, literally a straight shot down this street. So I'm in the 16-minute walk, gonna rest up, grab a jacket, and head back out to see an off-Broadway show. I've stumbled upon a Christmas market. So doing a little just strolling around on the way back to the hotel. This is why I do say, like, if the walk isn't that much longer, take the walk. You never know what you'll see. Thank goodness I could buy a Muppet. Sage would love it if I bought him a puppet. There's a place called Pickle Me Pete. You can get a pickle on a stick. Okay, I did get a little something from the Christmas market. I got a poncho because I live in Florida, and she poured water on her arm and then it was completely dry. It was incredible, and it's reversible. So we'll see if that was a good purchase in another video when I'm inevitably wearing it because it's raining, because we live in Florida. But now we're stopping by the hotel to change and then continuing on to see off-Broadway show. Yesterday I also saw a Dungeons and Dragons show called 20-Sided Tavern. So I'm having a good time from a show's perspective. A couple of shows that I can wholeheartedly recommend are any Disney on Broadway shows. I actually have never seen them truly on Broadway, but I've seen tours and they were incredible, so I know they are unbelievable on Broadway. And I've seen many of the Disney on Broadway performers perform at Epcot and things or other events. So I do think Disney on Broadway is definitely worth watching if that's something you're interested in. Currently running, I've seen Chicago, I've seen Hadestown, both incredible shows. The current lead in Hadestown is Jordan Fisher, who is also the male singer in Happily Ever After in the Magic Kingdom. So lots of overlap between Broadway and Disney. And they also have the Harry Potter and the Cursed Child show. Back to the Future is running at the time that I'm filming. So lots of options for Broadway shows. All I can say is see one. They're incredible. And hashtag live entertainment is important.
We'll take it. You've seen it before. Yay, awesome. Let us know if you need anything.
Okay, we just got out of our show. Saw Drunk Shakespeare. It was incredible. Seriously, like, it's a 21 and up show, but if you can see Drunk Shakespeare, I cannot recommend it enough. It was so good. Like, just beyond amazing. I laughed the whole time. It was incredible. Also, we're passing all these trailers because Law & Order is filming. They're not sure which one, but a Law & Order is filming near here. So just New York things. We're headed somewhere very exciting, very famous spot. It's called Junior's, famous for their cheesecake. And we're gonna meet someone who is probably not quite as famous as Junior's cheesecake, but is pretty famous. So, you know, you can get excited for that. Our friend who we're meeting just texted me and wanted me to share that with Junior's, they do not accept reservations except for Thanksgiving. But if you call 30 minutes ahead of when you're gonna be there, they can get a table ready for you. And this is a very famous spot with very famous cheesecake, New York cheesecake. So a great way for us to end our night. They're also open very late, 12 a.m., 1 a.m. So that all the times I've been at Junior's has been after seeing shows. So we're gonna go find a friend, find some cheesecake, and finish off our New York day strong. All right, headed into Junior's. This is the spot. You see a big red neon sign that says cheesecake. We head inside. We eat cheesecake. They've also got breakfast, but I've never not been here in the middle of the night. So let's go find our friend, shall we? Someone slightly less famous than Junior's cheesecake. Okay, we're at Junior's and we found the person slightly less famous than Junior's cheesecake. Would you like to say hello?
Hey everybody, it's AJ from Disney Food Blog.
Yeah! I met AJ. We're going on the Treasure together later this week, so that's why we're here, and that's already on the channel, so you can go watch that now. This, however, is the Electric Long Island iced tea, and it is bright blue. Bold of you to go for something with blue curacao outside of Disney World. You like had the chance to escape and you didn't take it.
Very good point. I guess that's just why I just love it.
It's
much.
like home. Fun, obviously kind of greasy, heavy food. Got the disco fries, which I was a big fan of because they were covered in gravy and cheese. That was an AJ pick. Also got a cheeseburger and of course the famous Junior's cheesecake. Do I think Junior's cheesecake really stands out? Hard to say. But it was tasty, a delicious kind of later night dinner after a show, and I can recommend it for that. Plus it's kind of the novelty and fun of it. But that is our New York day. I hope you guys had so much fun exploring New York. I know I certainly did. If you are interested in seeing more like city explorations when we do travel for Disney things or otherwise, let me know in the comments. And if you like this video, go ahead and like and subscribe. And now go watch Emma's arrival day in Tokyo. See you there. Bye.